Podcasts are great, but what's even better is when we get to have real conversations with all of you. And we're going to do that this September at the Conference. The Conference is our annual virtual conference, and it's this September 17th through 19th, and we'd love for you to join us. It's 3 days of education, inspiration, and tons of connection, not to mention really fun prizes and lots of cool opportunities to connect with other like-minded people. This year's lineup is incredible. We've got so many great speakers, including Ellen Lupton, Meg Lewis, James Martin, Christy Campbell, and so many others. Whether you're interested in licensing or wholesaling or just love typography and want to nerd out about it, we've got something for everyone. Plus, we've got a full day of workshops, and you can get that free as an upgrade to your pass by using the code Typecast. That's the name of this podcast, TYPECAST. And that'll give you a free workshop upgrade for your pass to the conference. This is our favorite event of the year. We love getting to connect with all of you from across the globe, hang out, chat, learn so many new things, and walk away feeling so inspired. Plus, we can do it all from the comfort of our couch and our pajamas. So go ahead and grab your ticket at theconference.com. We hope to see you there. Okay, we've made it to cyberspace, which is not as cool as Space Mountain, though. And today we have a Disney fanatic on the show.
Oh, yeah. You know that about me. Wow. I'm so honored.
Yeah. Do you want to do like a quick intro of who you are besides someone who likes Disney?
Designs.
Or also give us like more insight into the Disney thing.
Oh, we're going to get there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. We'll start with the other stuff and then we'll get immediately into Disney.
Okay. Well, I'm from Southern California. I live in LA now. I have the worst Valley girl accent, and I sometimes I'm like, I need to talk to a speech coach or something because sometimes I just can't get rid of the Valley girl in me.
Oh, I don't even notice it.
It's it's come up a few times where people have asked what my accent is.
Oh.
And I'm like, Valley? It's a Valley accent? I don't know. But yeah, I'm from Southern California, lived here my whole life. And well, I mean, I've escaped a couple times and then just couldn't not come back. And then I originally thought I was going to be on Broadway. That was like my dream. So I did the whole Glee thing. Like I was in competitive show choirs, and I also did the Pitch Perfect thing and was in a cappella groups, and I know how to tap dance. And
me too.
Oh, cool. We should do a number.
I have the choir side and and the theater side, and Alana's got the tap dancing. So together we could put on a show.
Yeah, I wouldn't be very good. My tap dancing skills are elementary at best. Also, I don't think we even said your name yet.
Yeah, I'm Amber. That probably should have been the first way to introduce myself.
It's fine.
First thing came up was California.
It's fine. I love that. These things are more
part
important.
of you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so what got you away from the Broadway world and into design?
Not getting into those programs and majors and groups. I think after several auditions, and I think just kind of the realist in me got really down to the practicality of it all. And I was like, I'd have to audition over and over. Yeah. This is so competitive, seeing everyone else and how good they are. And it just made me really nervous, or just really look at myself and think, is this really what I want to do? Right. And so, of course, on the side, I was always interested in art and creative things. And I would scrapbook all the time. I would have these very elaborate layouts and deciding where my images were going to go. And I would run the layouts under a sewing machine and put threading through, or would sew the picture down to the paper, and just stuff like that, where
did you
I
write
had so much fun. I didn't, because I hated my writing. So I always typed everything out and printed it.
Wow.
Oh
so I wish I had done that.
Yeah. That's when I had the font CDs and went crazy. I should show you pictures of these scrapbooks because they're insane.
Yeah.
There's one where I was in a kind of a peer group in high school or whatever. And And like for whatever reason, I chose the grungiest fonts for all of those, like compassion and service and honesty and like all of these words that like I think were on our shirts at one point or like described us.
Yes.
And it's like so funny to look at now because I didn't understand the context of what like choosing a font and why you would choose
but
that. And I just thought
like
it looked cool.
Super cool and ironic.
Yeah. Now it's like it looks like it's screaming those things and that it's just like so angry. Yeah.
I used to scrapbook as well. And one thing as like a graphic designer who's like been in it for long enough is that I hate that all of these crafts have so many things that you need. Like you need to buy so many tools and then they need to be organized. And I'm like, this is one thing I love about graphic design. It's like I just need a computer. Like I could create anything with the computer. But I recently found I like connected with someone who we had like really similar childhoods in the same area but didn't know each other. We went to the same summer camp the same summer. I was like, I wonder if there's a picture of her. And so I went through my scrapbook, but I hand wrote everything. And I was like so particular, if we're being generous, of like about what it would look like. And I'm like, I can't believe I hand wrote them. Like it was just so the graphic designer in me is like, oh gosh, it's so ugly. But I love the pictures and the shapes that I would cut them out.
My favorite part of scrapbooking is the scissors, the different types of scissors with like the different little scalloped edges and like all sorts. Yeah, those are the best. So satisfying. I would cut a lot of them into circles and ovals. Like half the pictures are just like circles. And it's like, it's all that's left.
Yeah. Like, and then the funny thing about scrapbooking too is when you're out of that thing, you're out of it. So like I would use like letter set stuff too, where you like rub the letter down because I so didn't want to use my hands or like my handwriting to ruin it. Like I thought that was going to ruin my layout.
It did.
So like I would use,
you were correct.
Yeah. So I would use like the letter set stuff that like they didn't call it letter set, but then later in graphic design, I was like, oh, I've been doing that since I was like 18.
Old hat.
So yeah.
That's so funny.
But yeah, like once you run out, then you're out of that.
Little things that we do that later show up and we're like, oh yeah, those are the breadcrumbs that led to this career that I have now.
Yeah. I feel like I've brought up this person like several times randomly over the last year, but Ralph Tyndall Designs, he is like a handmade card maker and it is like such a nostalgic thing for me. Maybe that's one of the reasons I love it so much is because he makes each card like you can't replicate them. It takes like hours to make each card, but it's like he does like the ASMR videos and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it so much. It's like so relaxing. I could just watch it on repeat. It's the best. So I'm gonna link to him so that people can enjoy him as well. But
my mom took me to a stationery party when I was really young. That like her friend, I don't know. I feel like they were selling stuff. So it's kind
like
of
a Tupperware party.
Yeah, exactly. But it was stationary. But normally I was so bored whenever she took me to those types of things or like with her friends. I was like, oh. But this time I was like, what is this thing that embosses stuff? Like they had an embossing heat gun and they were like showing it off over there. And I was like, Mom, I've never wanted anything so much. Get me that embossing gun. I don't think I got it then, but I got one later in life. And it was just as satisfying as I'd hoped it would be.
So Amber, do you still do anything with your hands now that you're like, we haven't even gotten to this yet, but like you own an agency and do you still do anything like analog?
It's so sad, but I don't. And I'm always like, I should figure, you know what I have gotten into recently? This is so funny. Coloring. I have a 4-year-old son right now and he's really into coloring. And I have like a couple of like really creative coloring books for adults kind of a thing. And so now I just love coloring and that's just kind of my like getting into a zone or listening to a podcast while I'm coloring or.
What's your preferred pen or pencil?
Colored pencils. Yeah.
Wow. Do you use just like the regular ones that like kids would use at school or do you get like your Prismacolors out?
Yeah, I've got the Prismas.
Okay. Yeah. Those are so satisfying. Oh my gosh. They're so soft and just nerding out.
I have a 5 and 7-year-old and my kids like don't know what they're using, but I do have the Royal Talon's Pantone markers. These are like new. I think they came out last year, but they're refillable and they are Pantone colors and they're like great markers. And so when they're doing something, they'll ask me, can we use like the good markers? And I'll like go to my closet and they can use them. Like I'm totally happy with them.
They're like in a safe. You have a combination.
The only reason though is because they will stain our furniture and they're 5 and 7. So like they will get on the table and I just don't want them to ruin something, even though everything is already ruined and it's fine and I'm totally okay with it. But they are also a chisel on one side and a brush on the other, which I find to be very challenging to use. So I'm like, I can't even believe that they want to use them. Like they're not just like one of those fat tips where you can just scribble your way. Anyway, they will bleed through the page though. There's some heavy duty. I mean, they're ink. They're refillable. Okay, I went on a tangent.
You have to get the right coloring book. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, that's the only analog thing. It's like I can't even pull out paints. Like I just don't even have time for something like that. Yeah. And even though that'd be a fun idea, like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to just like paint? But it doesn't happen.
Okay, so you have one 4-year-old and you have a business. So you have
another child.
2 babies.
Yeah. And I have to feed both. Yeah.
Exactly. So what did that look like? Tell us a little bit about like starting an agency. Because you've worked with some really high profile clients and then all of your work just also looks high profile. Like it's so elegant and so elevated.
Thank
so I'd
you.
love to hear more about like starting that. And then we can talk about like maybe how motherhood changed that.
Yeah. Yeah. I quit my full-time job in 2017. So like I'd bounced around different studios or agencies and they always had like a roster of clients and I was kind of used to that client agency lifestyle. And so in 2017, I was like, I'm just going to do this on my own and like went for it. It was scary at first, but I had already had clients before I quit my job, which is what I always recommend is like, make sure you're making just as much on your side job as you are on your full-time job if you're really going to make that jump so that it's like stepping off of one ledge and onto another and not really a jump. And then I think where it really like kind of took off was in 2018. Well, there was a client that kind of followed me, which is like, a little scandalous, but they hated my previous boss and my previous studio and everything. And so they were like, we just want to work with you. And we fired her. We fired your boss. And now we just want you to finish the job. And so I was like, okay. And so this was Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, Rose Inc. And I would go to her house in Beverly Hills and talk through typography with her. And she was like really wanting this to be her baby and had like a very like creative vision for all of it too. And so once that project launched, then that's when I got the Poosh project with Kourtney Kardashian and her, like one of her best friends who started Poosh. So her best friend reached out to someone in the Rose Inc. team and asked who did your site. And, it's that word of mouth that you can't pay for. And so
I've been following the Kardashians. I know all the lore.
Yes.
So when I saw that in your portfolio, I was like, oh shoot.
I actually remember following you before then. And then
cool.
I think I saw you like talk about doing that project. And I was like, that seems like we need to know more information. I think you shared like it was like pretty chill. It was like a typical project where you like showed them designs. But did that like the minds? I don't know. Do you feel like living in the area where you were connected to that type of client was an impact? Like had an impact, or just
for sure.
One person and it snowballs.
Yeah, I would say that kind of client wants in-person meetups sometimes. Like especially when it was new to them, then it's like, okay, what do I need to do? How do I do this? And can you come to my house kind of a thing? And so
I will come to your house and I will Zillow it. Okay.
Yeah. Like
I will find out how much you paid for it.
Like you see the help at those homes and it's just like a completely different world too.
So you were actually in Kourtney Kardashian's house doing those meetings?
Oh, yeah, we did so like
cool.
2, maybe 3 meetings at her house.
Wow.
And, you know, she lives across the street from like Michael Jackson's mom, and Mariah Carey's on her street too. It's just like, I mean,
You felt like you're in an episode of Cribs, but
yes.
IRL.
And it was
so cool.
super secure too. Like you had
Yeah.
your like
Right.
name was on the list. You give them your driver's license, like the whole thing, and then you meet someone who you're going to sign a contract. Rosie wasn't quite like that, but definitely Courtney. So yeah, like it's environments like that where you're stepping into a completely different world and just kind of like a little out of your element for a little bit.
Was it hard to figure out how to price your work knowing that that was your client?
Oh yeah.
Obviously, not only do like they have a budget, whereas like we're a local mom and pop shop is going to be totally different, but also the reach. I mean, they are a household name, and I'm not familiar with much of the lore, so I'm so sorry. One of the K names. Which one? I don't even remember which one.
We're talking about the oldest.
Which one is that? What'd you say?
Courtney, the one that's
is the
married to
oldest.
Travis Barker.
I did have some of the popcorn this week, but I think that's different one.
That's Chloe.
Either way, they're a household name. They have products everywhere.
Get with it.
I know. I'm so sorry, but I know it's a big deal, and the work was really beautiful. But yeah, I feel like your whole mindset about how you
price
charge.
for that.
Yeah, and then how does that impact future projects where you're working with someone much lower profile? Was that like a big shift for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest advice and best advice I ever received is if you ever get a project in your lap like that, do whatever it takes to make it happen, because that is that's your winner right there. And so that's what happened. I did whatever I could to make it happen. And those are the ones you're not going to charge that much for. You're going to want to get in the door, be the best price. Like, it kind of sucks, but that's the reality, is because after that is when you're going to get the better projects. And it's kind of like, it's the influencer game that a lot of brands play too, where they know they're going to need to like put their product in these hands and for free maybe, and things like that. And then it's going to be the people with money after that are going to want that thing and are going to pay full price for it and all of that.
It's so important that you understood that mindset, not just like for your own self, but of the clients, because I think a lot of graphic designers, especially with like the current climate of social media, think, well, I deserve to be paid XYZ. And it's like, it's not about you. Always. Like, for you, this was an investment in your future, but like, just because you deserve it and you want it doesn't mean that a client does actually have the budget. But then on the flip side, we get people, like we were literally talking about this on our last episode. We just had a client, a very, not high profile, but like recognizable brand name, inquire with us. And I fought back for price. It was so low. And they were like, we totally honor your needs, which is why we're going to go with someone else. Cause like, we want to respect your wishes. And I'm like, so you're going to respect what I need for payment, but you're going to go with someone less expensive. And so it was like tough. Cause we talked about, we would have done it cause it was a really cool opportunity, but we wanted to at least try. And so it's like, the client will just disappear if they don't like your price. And so it's such a hard game. And so many people want things for free. And it's always a gut check, like first and foremost. And I'm so glad you understood, like, this has the potential to pay off. But I'm hoping you also, which I'm like assuming the answer is yes, also like stood your ground and like fought for what you, if there was an issue of like not treating people kindly or morals or something like that, that's when you are like, I don't care how much you pay me, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the snowball started rolling after that project, and then turned into another one and bigger ones, and ones that paid 3 or 4 times as much as that project paid. And so I saw it as like an investment in like my own advertising, my own portfolio, my own like future of this studio that really did, like, I think, grow based off of that like single project kind of a thing.
So how many people are on your team now, and did you have to scale up after that?
Well, the way that, I don't know, it's such a weird way of talking about my studio, because it's actually like, what's the word that some people use where it is a flexible studio model?
I mean, it's like you contract and expand as needed.
Yeah. So I don't technically have anyone full-time on in my studio. I'm
amazing.
like my only full-time person. And then like my project manager, she is technically a contractor and works full-time, or I mean part-time hours.
Yeah.
And she doesn't really need to be full-time because we never have like 40 hours of work
Right.
in a given week for her to work on. So part-time totally works. And then, yeah, like designers, developers, copywriters, motion designers, like everyone that we use are all contractors. And then it's just about having relationships with those contractors and them being ready whenever you have work for them and things like that.
That's amazing. That's really similar to how we've set it up too. But we've also kept the intention, which I'm curious if this was like top of mind for you, is like we never set out to be business partners. Like we didn't set out to grow something more than, you know, freelancing for ourselves. And I can see on your website, like the about page is just about like the value and the core of what you do, but there's no picture of yourself, or at least I didn't find one right away. And it doesn't say like who's on the team, because it doesn't matter so much because you'll like expand and contract. But did you ever think or go in the direction of wanting to not be a lean business and then like come back to
Yes.
roots? Okay.
Oh yeah. Like I think there was a moment where I was chasing the studio model and chasing what other people were doing, even just like 6 or 7 years ago, and thought I would have a studio space in LA and thought I'd have like a full-time staff and everything. And I'm so glad I never got there and that I didn't push for that, because having all of that overhead is way too stressful. And
Yes.
it's been so much easier to just have this flexible model and to not have to stress about those things. And yeah, like I think that this has been ideal for me. And like it's funny because some of the studios we look up to, you don't know this, but like they are working with a ton of contractors, and they have this facade of having a full-time team and a studio and everything like that. But then really like it's only like half of the studio is actually in, or even a fourth of the studio is actually in the studio, and really all the work that they're doing is all contractor based.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter as long as you're enjoying the work and feel good about it. And Katie and I both worked at like physical agencies where, you know, we were on a team with a lot of people. And it was funny. One of our students said to us, I think I want to go, like trying to figure out where to go after they graduated from college. They were like, I think I want to go to an agency so I can work on everything. And we were like, actually, if you go to an agency, like a ad agency or branding, whatever, you're going to work on the same thing over and over and over again. And if you go somewhere that's small and like has the ability to bring new people in, you're going to work on absolutely everything from copywriting to coffee runs to the branding and the good juicy stuff. And so it was really interesting. Just like we thought the same thing, I think, coming out of college, that like we needed to go to a big agency, realizing that actually what we were craving was that diversity in our work.
Yeah. I mean, I went to a really small agency right out of college, and that was great. It still just wasn't, just art direction in general wasn't the exact right fit for me, which I found out later. But it was so helpful having that background and seeing, because it was only like a 10-ish person team that kind of vacillated. They shared a lot about finances and like what the inner runnings of their business looked like with us, just to really keep everybody in the loop, especially when times were leaner. So they were like encouraging us to, you know, like help out and like community vibes, I guess. But it was just really helpful to see. I didn't even have an ambition at that point to open my own business, but it ended up being really great information that taught me like what I want and what I didn't want. And one thing that I didn't want was all the pressure of that overhead, like you were saying, is just seeing them sweat and feeling the responsibility of like, oh, it's a slow client month, but I have 10 people on the payroll and I have this really expensive rent and all these supplies and things like, and you can't just like take some of it away when you when you need to. Like that stuff is just there. So being nimble, I think, is the way of the future, or at least that's my future. That's the way of my future.
Yeah, like I would say it came in handy extremely in this year. Like the end of last year, beginning of this year, economy is shaky. No one knows what's really going to happen. A lot of like recession threats, things like that. The turnover of a new president, which we don't need to go into. And just like all of that, where it started to get really stressful for everyone. And the work was a little quiet. And it was one of those moments where I built this like this for a reason, because I quickly scaled down and I quickly put myself as designer in a lot of projects because I need to make money at the end of the day. And if I just keep giving all of my contractors the work, I was losing money and I was in the red at the end of last year, beginning of this year, to the point where I was like, okay, guess who's designing? Like, girl, like pull up your pants, like get into it.
Put your big girl panties
down.
on.
Yeah, exactly.
You had your pants off?
I love that.
And so like funny. Basically, you know, like suck it up, and you're going to have to work for a little bit until you catch up and make up for that loss that just happened. And that's just like, that's what the flexible model is all about.
Yeah. It's so like prevalent right now. Last year, we've heard from so many people that it was like, even, you know, our friends who were just thriving in their business, they were still so down from the year before. And I think it's still really, people are saying it's the slowest freelance year. And I know we're like coming off of leaning so far in the like education space that we're coming back to freelance. And it does seem like we'll hear back from people like, we just heard back from someone that was consistently working with freelancers, and she was like, we literally cannot do it anymore. It's a humongous, I think it's one of the biggest creative agencies in the US. And she's like, we literally are doing it all in-house now. Like we have the skill here. We just never had enough support, even though they're huge. And so it's just really like, for anyone listening that does still feel this, like it is definitely not happening in a silo. It is happening to everyone. And yeah, it's really important to diversify your income streams, but also like do things that you're passionate about. And it's hard because the price, like we're like, oh, well, we need to increase our prices. But the thing is, nobody can pay for the increased prices either. So it's like a double-edged sword.
So when we look at our finances year over year for Good Type, the shifting that is happening and the changing and unpredictability is way more than I would have anticipated. I mean, this year looks wildly different from last year, and like what income streams are bringing in the most money for us. And it's just like you have to have this mindset of flexibility all around and just scrappiness, I guess, as well. I think we've had to be willing to
scrapbook.
Yeah, we've had to be willing to really go with the flow and like try different things and not be committed or like too precious about any one thing. I don't know if Amber, you've seen the same kind of thing with, I don't know how much your income streams are diversified or like how
they're not
what eggs you have in
like
what basket
really
or how
bad.
That's been.
Yeah. It's one thing that I tried to look into was, how can I diversify my income? What can I do? And I kind of was like dabbling in a bunch of things too, and really trying to see, okay, what if I try like a YouTube channel? I tried that for a hot minute.
Oof,
and I was like, oh, this is going to take a lot of momentum to get this thing going. And I didn't really realize how much momentum it needed until I was like Googling it more, seeing all the blogs that are like putting all the numbers out there for you and realizing how much work that took. So that then like, you know, died off. And then I also tried to...
you have a podcast.
I have a podcast that doesn't make money.
Did that come out of that want to diversify?
Yes. So it was like, okay, YouTube is not for me. And then this idea or opportunity to do a podcast came up because I was doing this Women Designers You Should Know series on TikTok and then on Instagram. And it caught so much attention and like views, and for whatever reason, everyone was so into it that I was like, okay, I could turn this into something. And so I turned it into a podcast, which is still going. I'm like about a year and a few months into it, and trying to figure out how to monetize this thing. And it's really hard to do. And I'm worried it's going to become another YouTube scenario where I'm going to just eventually abandon it because I'm having a really hard time figuring it out and investing a lot of my own dollars into it just to try to figure it out. And
do you see other returns from your podcast though? Like, are there other things, or is it driving any towards your business, or
I don't see
what do you feel about that?
The returns I see are not monetary.
Yeah.
So, which was what initially I kind of went into it doing. I think the returns have been more on community and
that's what
I
we
think
find as well.
Yeah, and like kind of a service to the design industry and even like outside of the design industry as a whole in helping bring up these names, helping educate, and I've been able to connect with some really big names that I otherwise would have never connected with, like like Rowan Adams and Poom Lefebvre and Michael Beirut and Stephen Heller and things like that, where it's like, oh, like these are big reputations, big names in the industry, and I would have otherwise never spoken to these people. Totally. And so I think it's been really exciting because it's putting at least my, like, that fear that everyone has that they'll die and just be forgotten and all of that. I think it's like putting my name in the like permanency of the world, where now it's like, now I've done so much of this and I'm like, well, maybe I just keep going because it's at least doing something for someone and for the greater good, and may not be putting money in my pocket.
It seems like you've seen how much relationships are important. I mean, the Poosh thing came out of that. I'm sure a lot more of your gigs come out of that. And if I could tell a brand new designer anything, it would be to prioritize your relationships and networking within the industry from the very beginning.
100%.
Yeah, I think even like, I don't know that I would have been confident enough or comfortable enough to like start my own podcast right out of school, but like, I feel like that would be such a good tool for a student to just be like, okay, this is how I'm breaking in. Like, it's a really great way to break the ice with people and like get that conversation on the books because like they're getting something out of it too. So that could be an interesting thing for like younger students to use. But and then also podcasts, I think we tend to like get into those and feel like we're making a commitment for the rest of forever. But I think there's like more of this phase now that we should normalize of having a little podcast era, a little podcast moment, and then like putting it aside and maybe picking it up later. And like that's a cool little side quest to have too.
Yeah, you don't have to do it forever.
Yeah.
I mean, at least I felt like when we took on a podcast, I was like, okay, so my life's planned out. And I had to remind myself, like, I can stop whenever.
It's also expecting a return from it too. And I think, just like when we talked about in the beginning, like when you go freelance, you know that you're going to shift and change. And like, if it's not going well and you're not making ends meet, you're going to shift. For some of us, that means shifting until we get it right. But for some of us, it's going to mean getting a part-time job or a full-time job. Yeah, I think we've definitely seen the exact same things you're seeing. And I think there's something with like needing to give back so that you can also receive. And so for us, the podcast, we're not really monetizing it, but we're getting so many great conversations out of it that are really fun for us. And so I think also prioritizing like service in some way for your community that is beyond just like getting your work out there, which like brings me to Instagram, because I noticed that this might be like a far reach, but you don't really post often. And I remember, I think that's where I found you. And I think we might've graduated around the same time, where it was like new and we were connecting with people. We were like, there's 40 other female graphic designers. So I think that's where I found you. You're not using it a lot now. But actually, before I say that, I just want to say one thing about your podcast. I obviously listened to the Mary Blair episode, and
oh, good,
because I love her as well. And that's a Disney reference. We'll talk about. We'll hopefully get to Disney. But the way that you like deep dive, I don't even know. Do you just spend hours researching, or is this all coming out of like, do you have a photographic memory from school? Like, it's amazing what you've done for artists who we've maybe like heard their names of, but like never knew so much about them. And your husband, right? I think it was your partner.
Yeah, he joined me on that one. Mm-hmm.
It was, I just like was geeking out the whole time because I've always loved her. I mean, who doesn't love Mary Blair's work, but like learning about her life, I knew bits and pieces, but it was just, I've read the children's book about her, which is, 12 picture book pages. So it certainly didn't go in as in depth as you did. But yeah, can you just like really quickly talk about like the intricacy of like prepping for your podcast?
Yeah. Last year when I really started it, I was like putting so much time into it. Like I really only work 30, 35 hours a week total.
Right.
And half of that time was the podcast. And then half of it was my studio. And that was a time when all of my contractors were working on stuff. I was just checking in. I was creative directing and was not doing like the brunt or the bulk of the work of just like sitting and pixel pushing. So I had time for the podcast, but it wasn't making me money. And that's when I had to shift, especially with the economy and everything. But there was a time when I was like, wow, this is so time consuming, just the research alone. And like I would say, like one really sad truth is the Wikipedia pages of a lot of these women are pretty sad and like pretty small. And the research that is really found is in books that people have written, which for whatever reason just don't show up on the Wikipedia pages, or even like it's in I learned a lot of this from Briar Levitt, who has done a lot of research on women and wrote a whole book, Baseline Shift. And she said that you have to go to these institutions that have their archives and have all their work and might have their journals or whatever it might be. And it's all held in these institutions that are behind like a paywall, or you have to be part of some membership. And like, it's a lot of gatekeeping information out there that is still happening. And especially with women, probably because a lot of people just don't care. So they're not really putting it out there. But then you can Google Paul Rand and all of this stuff and find all of these like anecdotes, and his Wikipedia page is going to be really long and all of that, and like all of his portfolio. And we see so much work out there. Whereas, you know, we're regurgitating maybe the same like 5 pieces of a single woman.
Right.
And then the rest of her archive lives somewhere else that nobody's actually going to and scanning or taking pictures of and putting out there. Or if they are, it's behind a paywall. So it's stuff like that like as I was getting more into it, it was making me more angry and more motivated to keep going, because I was realizing how much research I was having to do. Of course, like ChatGPT can help find me a lot of that stuff too, and articles and things like that. It doesn't do a good job of podcast scrubbing. So like I'll listen to other people's podcasts too, who've also spoken about those people. But then it's so great when they do have a book, or there is some kind of a book about that person, because that's when you can really read like the Mary Blair information was all in this like book that had all these details about her.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
well, thank you for your service on
Thank you.
women's behalf.
Yeah.
And on designers, like I feel like, I don't know, when I went to school, everyone was like, this is such a male dominated field. And I was like, I don't know, look around the room. And like, I think with design being so accessible now, which is amazing, like it's so important that we celebrate the people who paved the way for us. And like, I don't know, there's just, design is like, it keeps getting better, but also like we keep going back to our roots. Like,
yeah,
it's just these like cycles. And yeah, it's really important what you're doing, and we're very appreciative. And it's a great podcast if you haven't listened already.
Thank you.
We'll link it in the show notes for sure. Okay, so that was my like really big segue, but I'm bringing it back to social media because you, like you said, you were on TikTok for the podcast and you have an Instagram account for it, but then you have an agency Instagram account and a personal, and you don't really post very often, but you've still managed to like grow online and book jobs, but probably not through social media. So can you talk a little bit about like what marketing or your relationship with social media? Do we have like 12 hours? I don't know.
It's so hard to keep up with. That's like at the end of the day, it's not even like refusal to post. It's like, oh, I should be posting more and I just don't have the time and can only spread myself so thin. And so I think it's just part of the ebbs and flows of like, there have been moments where I was like full social media, you like posting very regularly, and then phases where I'm just like burnt out and exhausted and all I can really focus on is client work. And so yeah, it's a lot of that. I think for a while when I did have all my contractors working on other things, then it gave me more of an opportunity to focus more on social media. And that's how I saw my like role in my own studio was I'm the one who's bringing the work in, who's putting the work out there, who's really keeping track of what the like picture of the studio looks like externally. And so that was really helping. But yeah, I mean, I would say once you get to this point where you've had a studio for like 8 or so years, there's a lot of seeds in different places. And now that they've like grown over time, then those seeds are returning fruit to me now. And like it's still, you know, even efforts from like 4 years ago or 3 years ago or 5 years ago are still coming back to me now. And I need to keep planting more seeds and making sure in the next 5 years, I still have stuff coming back to me. So it'll be sometimes the most random stuff where a friend of a friend told them about us, and it's someone I've never interacted with or didn't know about, or someone within a team, like a marketing person has just like followed nice people for years now, and then they're finally reaching out. And so it's like it's such a slow moving like snowball again, where like eventually it comes back to you and eventually the word gets out there. And so I would say it's just has been all about making sure there's case studies of recent work and making sure that like I'm still acknowledging that stuff and putting it out there. Putting our name in footers of websites as a requirement for a project has been really helpful, because that's how a lot of people have found us. That's how people found us through the Poosh project. And then, yeah, sometimes like we get saved on lists because of that. And then you just never know whose list you're going to be on in a year or so when they're looking for someone. And then sometimes people find us through Google searches, and I'm like, what? How? What did you like? It's so crazy. Yeah. Cause I'm like, I do not work on SEO. I'm not like that kind of person who's putting ads out there and Google ads and all of that. So it's really great to hear when it works that way too, because it's like, oh, cool. Awesome.
Do you have like a good reminder? It is. Do you have advice for like a young designer who's like, okay, well, if I need to be building this web, then I need to be building it as fast as I can by posting all the time? And like, when your name was in our inbox, I was like, oh my God, I absolutely recognize this name, and I knew your work, and I could think of like 3 projects I remembered of yours. And so, yeah, that's like a really, that spider web was woven a long, long time ago. But yeah, what do you think?
Alana was stuck in your web. She was all wrapped up, ready to be eaten.
Ready to pounce. Yeah, what about for like young designers who are like, yeah, I get that, but I need to do it as fast as possible. And also, you know, I need to post as much as possible, because it feels like if you're not posting regularly, then it becomes irrelevant. I think that's the fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there's going to only be so many case studies that you're going to have early on too. And so like I say, go all in those case studies, do whatever you can to make it like a really filled out case study, and then try to like plant that in places too. Like reach out to like Typewolf, and or like, you know, some of these sites or Instagrams that have it where you could keep posting and posting to like avoid and like a zero audience, but you need to get it into places that might have a better audience than you. And so yeah, like it was about putting it in those places, posting it on Pinterest so that hopefully it would like start, you know, people would start repinning it from there. Behance, posting it on Behance and hoping that they post it on their behalf, like in their own little world or bubble, because then that's how you get more followers, and that's its own social media. I even did Dribble for like several years, where that was really great and exciting, and then people are pinning your dribbles too. And so it just like all starts to like circulate a little more, where like if you're just posting on Instagram, it's probably like you really have to, you know, again, plant seeds in different places to really get those going.
And you said this earlier, but like you want to plant the seeds, but you also like, you don't have to dedicate yourself to them for the next 20 years. Like you could post every day for a month. Like we just did a couple experiments where we posted every day for 30 days on Instagram, and then we just stopped posting. We were like, okay, we learned some things. Great. Now maybe nothing will come of it, but at least we have data now of what did work. And then if we do go to post, we can keep those things in mind. It's not like you have to post on Dribble every day now forever, but maybe you post twice a week for a couple months and then you see if it's working.
The strategic ideas that you were sharing too, I think are often overlooked. Like just putting it on a social media platform because that's what other people do is usually the move. But when I first saw my spider web working, I was still in my 9 to 5 job as an art director, and I made my first poster just for the heck of it, and I had my friend screen print it, and it was a Carl Sagan quote that I really loved, and I just illustrated it, and then I was like, this is great to post on like Carl Sagan fan sites and like screen print fan sites and things like that. And so I started submitting it to different blogs and people that were in that sphere, and it got like picked up on Reddit threads for Carl Sagan and stuff like that.
Cool.
And I ended up selling out that whole run of posters really fast, just because I targeted the right people instead of just posting it to my like 5 followers on Instagram at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't get Reddit. Like, I get it, but I don't fully understand. It's like a whole world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. I don't either, but when you get popular on Reddit, that can be a thing. I've definitely seen dividends pay off from random Reddit threads that somebody shares my name on.
So wild. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I love that. Yeah. Okay. So, was there anything else on that? Did we full circle it?
What was the circle? What was it?
The
We
original
started.
question was about,
it's not a
like,
circle; it's a web.
Oh yeah, it's a web.
That's true. It's just like not. Yeah. I guess the last question I asked was about.
Oh yeah, how to get it all started and everything.
Yeah. I think we webbed it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we made it back to the center. Okay. So one of the things we had asked you before you came on was like, what experiment? This is our year of experiment. I mentioned we did like the 30 days on Instagram. We're doing some bigger ones. We're doing some smaller ones. And we asked you if there were any like experiments you did in your business. And I think we talked a little bit about your side projects, but we didn't really talk about slowing down. We talked about like scaling, but I think slowing down, like you said, 30 to 35 hours a week. Can you just touch on that before we wrap up? It's like slowing down overall and like not buying into the hustle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think after doing a bunch of side projects, trying to diversify the income, things like that, it started to get a little like overwhelming, of course, naturally. Yeah. Like, I mean, one side project I had started or was like kind of an investment was we bought a Lake Arrowhead house and now have an Airbnb. So like that was like part of the like, you know, the list of ideas to try to diversify an income kind of a thing.
Toadstool house, is that what it was called?
Toadstool Cottage. Cute. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, I've been getting a lot of moments of burnout, and a lot of stress has been showing up in different ways over the last couple of years, which has been unnecessary and maybe my own doing. I'm a Capricorn, so naturally I think I just put way too much of myself into things and don't really take care of myself. And I've like sometimes have topics of burnout on my podcast, and I feel like a fraud talking about those things because I'm like, you know, fully suffering from burnout in that recording. And so it's been moments like that where I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I throwing a podcast on my lap and doing all of these things? And I think the economy and the like, you know, scaling down gave me that opportunity to realize and think, how can I take care of myself? How can I get rid of all of these like stress symptoms that are showing up in my life and take care of myself and slow down? And what if I did, and what would that look like? And so I have always been jealous of the people who don't work on Fridays. And so I gave myself permission to do that. I was like, no, we're not working on Fridays anymore. And so literally just weeks ago, told my project manager this, we're going to start communicating it to clients, and we are closed on Fridays and we don't work on Fridays. And it was just like, oh, that was so much easier than I thought it would be. What else can I do? And so like, I've been doing that thing where in the past, we never had like we're booked out this much. Like that was never something I implemented in my own studio. It was like, yeah, we can start on this as early as next week if you need to, because I had contractors on hand. I could just pull into a project, and I knew I could stack myself really well if I needed to. And so this like opportunity of slowing down, putting myself into more projects, and then thinking, no, we're not going to take on new projects right now just because we're going to tell these people we're now available to work on your project in September. and like that's been kind of gratifying too, to see how people respond to that. Do they still say yes? Like I had a fear people would just go to someone else who's sooner available. And so it's been things like that I've been testing out to think, how can I slow down and not be hustling and chasing, building the studio that's doing just fine? How can I take care of myself better and just like work a regular work week? And like another thing is my son, he's going to start school soon in public school. He was going to preschool and all of that, and it was really long hours, and I felt really bad, and he hated the long hours. And so now I think I'm going to embrace public school hours, and maybe we'll do a little bit of like after school care kind of a thing. And then I'm like, what if my work days are shorter? And then I spend more time with my son, and maybe my work day is going to end at 3 now instead of 5. And
I mean, mine does, because
oh, really?
exactly that. Well, yeah. The bus comes around 3:30, so I wake up early, like 5 in the 5s, sometimes in the 4s. Blech, it's the worst.
Oh,
and I get my workout done. So like the minute they are on the bus, I get to work, and then at the end of the day, I go to bed when they go to bed, basically, which is way earlier than most people. But that decision to like, I mean, whatever works for you. Some people stay up till 11 p.m. with their kids, and it's whatever works for your household. But I love that, and that is something Katie and I have been trying to like detangle ourselves from. And this is this idea that like, if it's a work hour, we should be working. And like, but sometimes there's nothing that has to be done right then. And so we're like, I guess we could try doing something else, like something for fun.
Right.
What would that look like?
My husband is working at a sound design, he's working as a sound designer for a video game studio. This was his first time kind of working in a more corporate environment and in a game studio. And they have periods where he's just like doesn't have anything on his plate sometimes. And at first he was like, felt like he was doing something wrong, and he would be like feel so guilty, even though he was like doing exactly what was expected of him, and they just have him on hand ready to hop on the next thing they need. But he was like talking to the person who sits next to him, and he was like, hey, what am I supposed to be? Is this okay? And he was like, dude, enjoy this moment, because it's going to get crazy. Just like take the moment and like let it be okay. And so he was like, all right, well,
I guess hard like when you go into an office.
Yeah, well, you want to make sure you're meeting expectations of other people, but I took that as a lesson for myself too, of, hey, just because it's a work hour doesn't mean that I have to be working at the same 100% level all the time. It can ebb and flow, and I can allow that and not be guilty about it.
Right. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And our friend Adam Vickerell, he also, I think this quote is from somebody else other than him, but he always brings it up, and I don't know who said it. But anyway, the theory that like whatever you're working on, whatever project it is, will expand or contract to fit the deadline that you give it and to fit the amount of hours in a day that you give yourself to work. So I think that's a really good reminder.
That is really cool.
If one of the biggest fears that you have about setting boundaries is, I'm not going to have enough time to finish the thing, you might just test that theory and see if that's actually true, or if this idea of maybe you're having less time is going to make you just be more efficient than you think. Maybe that's what's going to happen instead.
And it doesn't give you the space to like get in your head. I don't know that I would thrive if I was taking on branding projects that were like 3 months, 12-week projects, and like strategy. Would actually prefer to do one that's like, we need this in 2 weeks, and here's the 3 ideas, like go for it. And I'd be like, you got it. And it's like the pressure, but also the like the boundary around it for me really works. So you have to find out what your own boundary is. Like, will you get more done? Will you overthink less? Or will you?
I mean, I'm saying this at the same time of like, I hate deadlines, and until I get something good and I'm like, okay, I at least have this to fall back on.
Yeah.
I'm very stressed until that. But at the same time, like, it's a trade-off of, okay, well, I'm going to have my summer Fridays. So I'm going to just like have this moment of maybe just learning how to deal with this pressure differently, or to look at it differently, or, you know, change my mindset on how I look at the time that I do have, and then be able to enjoy that time off without like having work hanging over my head.
Yeah. And I think I've always been the people pleaser, where I'm going to work really late at night just to get this done by this deadline that we promised them. And I'm trying to push against that too, in order to slow down. So timelines are longer. And if I need a few more days, like, we tell the client, and like, I kind of think ahead and think, oh, there's no way I'm anywhere close to where I need to be for that presentation. Let's push it another week, kind of a thing.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy that if you just tell them, like,
yeah,
hey,
like,
it's
okay,
Monday, and you're like, I know we said we'd have this Friday. We're just not where we want to be. We, you know, it shows that you care. It's not, and if it happens consistently, like every time there's a deadline, obviously it's gonna be like, I don't believe you. But if you're just saying it's not where we want to be, we want to give it more time, I feel like that should be met with respect and with, you know, openness. But yeah, if it's like making a routine of never missing a deadline, then obviously we're not going to do that. And it depends what's at stake. Is it like deadlines we set for ourselves, or are they clients like hard and fast deadlines for print production? So yeah, I think keeping all that in mind. But I know we've had that happen to us, where people are like, I know I said I'd get this to you, I'm not ready. And we're like, okay, cool. Well, you gave us enough time to plan for that.
Yeah.
Works out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
I love talk of setting boundaries. I feel so powerful.
Yeah.
We talk about it a lot behind the scenes, so it's nice to talk about it on our podcast.
So necessary.
Well, I'm so glad we had you on the show. And
thank you.
Can you just do a quick like plug of your podcast and where people can find you and your agency and all of the good things? And we didn't even talk Disney.
Oh,
Next time we'll talk Disney.
Well, my studio is Nice People. I don't think I even said that. Did I? Well,
I don't know. We're
Nice People. You can find it at nicepeople.com and on Instagram at Nice People. And
I love the name so much.
Yeah, so
thank you. And you can find at Amber AC on Instagram. And then the podcast is called Women Designers You Should Know, wherever you get your podcasts. And it's also on Instagram as Women Designers Pod. So you could also find all of those through my personal Instagram account anyways, because I just link to it all anyways.
Perfect.
So
we'll link to all the things.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was great to talk to you.
You too.
Yeah, next time we'll talk all things Disney.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. All right. All good things.
Thank you.